Hello all, I'm Sam. Welcome to this week's video. This is a school project, so yeah, you can click off now if you don't want to see it. This is going to be separated into a few different parts, and yeah, without further ado, let's go. This is all about Joseph Stalin, and I hope you enjoy my A+ project. Born Joseph Stalin, Joseph Stalin was not always a bad man. He was at one point the top of his class, even though he wasn't born speaking Russian. Both of his parents were Georgian peasants. But let's start going into his worst history. Joseph Stalin was a Communist Party leader, and in all reality, a bad man. Even though I act about how I love communism, I do, but I'm gonna have to admit that he did kill a bunch of people. It's not like 20 million or anything like that, but he was not always a horrible man. At first, he was studying priesthood, and he was a socialist at the time. He was arrested and banished from the country multiple times. He later changed his name to Joseph Stalin, meaning Man of Steel. He changed it while he was a follower of Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, who was a member of the Russian Socialist Democrats Party. Not long after that, the monarchy fell, and the communists rose to power. And do you want to know who else rose to power with the communists? Yup, that's right, Joseph motherfreaking Stalin. But in 1929, when Lenin died, Stalin rose even higher, and within a year, Stalin was known as one of the most ruthless totalitarian leaders ever. For those of you who don't know what totalitarian means, it's a fancy word for communist. But now that we're done with who he is, let's go into the communism stuff of what he did. Joseph Stalin, while under his reign, started to eliminate private farms, and at the same time, started to mold the Russian society to what he seemed fit. And just between you and me, come here, he did some unorthodox things to form it the way he wanted. He would rig all of the court cases and make it so that people would say that they were guilty, by torture or by any other means necessary. To his followers, he was revered as a god. To them, he saved them from the hardships, and by saving them, he turned them into a global superpower. And while he was doing that, he was spending more money than they could afford. In the beginning, Stalin knew that he was gonna have to get involved. He wanted to remain neutral for a little bit, while Germany and France fought it out, and while the winners were recovering, he was planning on attacking them while they were weak. But when that didn't work, he wanted to form a peace pact with Britain and France, but neither of them were winning. So, Papa Stalin decided it would just be smarter to befriend the Germans. After doing some battling with other countries, they traded territories, and now, I don't know if I'm alone with this, but all I can imagine is two chubby 9-year-old kids trading Yu-Gi-Oh cards while sitting alone at a picnic table at recess. Don't worry guys, that wasn't me, haha. I wasn't chubby when I was younger. But anyway, in November of 1939, the Red Army, aka the Soviet Union, invaded Finland. Even though the Finns had less people, they were surprisingly keeping the Soviets at bay. So Stalin, decided to offer a peace treaty with the Finns. Now you may be wondering, why in the world would he do that? Well, how about you shut up and let me tell you. Stalin knew that he couldn't win, and the Finns definitely knew the Soviets wouldn't win, so I guess it might have been a pity thing. It's June 1941. Germany is on its ropes, and they don't know what to do. So they decide to do probably the dumbest thing ever. They invaded the Red Army. Stalin was, of course, very surprised. There were lots of battles, but of course, Stalin wins. I'll leave the link to the story in the description below. It's very neat. Now, the way Stalin liked to fight was by defending, if that makes sense to you imbeciles. But to an intellectual like me, it's very easy. Basically, he just puts defense over everything else. And now, while that's happening, US and Japan are fighting. Through all of that, Stalin meets up with Winston Churchill and Franklin Roosevelt to discover a peace treaty, which, as you can tell, happened, and that's how the Allies started. So, I really didn't want to spoil Endgame for everyone, but in the end, Adolf Hitler actually kills himself and the Germans surrender. And the funny part is, when people found out about that, they started looting Germany and England. And when Stalin received complaints, Stalin simply said, and I quote, "After experiencing the traumas of a war, a soldier could react normally, and what's so awful about his having fun with a woman after such horrors," end quote. But the war wasn't over yet. After Germany was finished, Stalin focused on Japan. He transferred 500,000 troops to the Far East, and then the USA sent 2 nukes to Japan, and Stalin sent his troops to Manchuria. And considering everything, that might have been the camel that broke the straw's back, and inevitably led to the surrender of Japan. Stalin died of a brain hemorrhage in 1953. Unfortunately, but fortunately for the Russian people, his legacy lived on through Russian leaders for years. Until in 1992 when the Soviet Union fell. I'll give Joseph Stalin a 7 out of 9. He was a pretty good guy, but he also killed like 7.5 people. But yeah, in all reality, I give Joseph Stalin, on a scale of the bad boy meter, a 10 out of 10. He did kill 20 million people, but he seems pretty cool. Hit me if you want to chat, Joseph. Well, everyone, that was my school project on Joseph Stalin and some of the stuff he did. I hope you liked it. I want to give a good old-fashioned thanks to my friend Hayden for recording the background gameplay, and a huge shout out to Mrs. John. Like the video and subscribe. Bye.
Got that chop, got that stick, bitch, I'm Japanese. Ramen noodles on my dick when I'm clapping cheeks. Going stupid in the whip cause I cannot see. Try to bring your dog, then you better bring that cutlery. Get into the chips, hunt is blue like the Doraemon. Nice guy, but I spit flames like I'm Iroh. Talking at your neck, I bring the drum. Tycho, lames get to speaking, now what's up, bitch, Ohio. I'm a fucking shogun, find it in my face, opposition, let me roll one.